And we're going straight into the conversations that matter to Trinidad and Tobago. This morning, Kimberly has your spotlight on now with Braden Roberts talking about secondary schools.
Now, classes have resumed at the Scarborough Secondary Schools, but Form 2s and 3s will be rotated during the week. And so talking to us about this rotation and some of the other repairs that need to be done at Scarborough Secondary School is the Tutor Officer in Tobago, Mr. Braden Roberts. Mr. Roberts, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us on Now.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be back on the show.
Yes, it's always a pleasure to have you. How is Tobago this morning?
Well, actually, I'm in Trinidad, but I believe that all is well in Tobago at the moment, as teachers are out trying their best at the moment.
Of course. And in terms of trying their best, I mean, students seem to want to also be trying their best as well. I mean, I've been hearing about a rotation that's taking place at Scarborough Secondary School. Can you tell us about that one?
Yes. So, unfortunately, one section of the school is inaccessible. So, in order to accommodate all the students, two class levels have to rotate as Forms 2 and 3.
So Form 2 and 3. So how is it going to work? Which days for Form 2? Which days for Form 3s?
Right. So they have it's 1 day on, 1 day off. The initial suggestion was to have 2 days, 3 days, and then they switched to 3 days, 2 days. But based on how the class subject levels and so on have to operate, they saw it fit to do 1 day on, 1 day off, where the teachers would have to then manage how they prepare and deliver work.
Right. And then so is it that one form is going to get 3 days as opposed to another form? So one form may have an advantage, or it's not going to work that way?
No, by the time the next week turns around, the form that was getting 2 days would end up getting 3 days. So it balances itself.
Right. And I mean, how long is this procedure going to be in place?
Well, seeing the amount of work to be done, I don't see a time frame to it. I am not certain if it will be completed before the term is out. It's not just simply contractors doing the work, it's getting some of the material, the equipment, to have the work completed. So with those different variables, it's very difficult to have a time frame, to even guess a time frame at this moment.
Right. And all the other forms have not been affected. Is it that they have their 5-day school week as usual?
They have their 5-day school week as usual.
Right.
But go ahead.
No, you are. Continue.
Right. So the compound itself, with all the work that is taking place and some of the classrooms being restructured to accommodate certain classes, it requires a bit of a compromise for everyone. So it's not that the other classes or the other teachers in the upper school will not be affected. But as you would have also said, teachers and students are trying their best to make it work. The environment needs to be a settled one where you can focus on teaching and learning, because just having school doesn't say that it's the best opportunity for a child to learn or best avenue for a teacher to teach. The environment needs to be accommodating, and working around some of the challenges, we see that our teachers are indeed trying their best. And not at Scarborough Secondary School, and the other schools would have their challenges as well, but teachers in the main are giving their best effort.
Right. Now, Scarborough Secondary School, over the years, would have been one of those schools identified for a lot of repair works to be done. Is there any talk about relocation of the building on the books?
There have been talks for years. I mean, it's been a political football where we go to the media, we announce that we are in the budget where you have an allocation for the new Scarborough Secondary School, but we haven't seen anything substantial. We had the last administration indicating that they acquired a land in Bacolet. And then we're wondering if that land was actually acquired. What is the issue with the land? How far have we reached? The new administration would have gone a little further to bring in investors, where they're going to get the financing from. So they identified a source, but it's not that funds will just come. There are things that need to happen before we can move further. I am not certain that anything significant has happened going forward. So since we heard some of the announcements, So I'm not certain what is actually happening with the new school. I don't see a new school hub coming within the next 4 to 5 years.
Hmm. Now, I know we mentioned at the top that, of course, students and teachers are working, to ensure that everything gets done. But in terms of safety, is safety a concern at this time?
Well, safety is something that tutor will not ask our teachers to compromise on. We can't ask anyone, students, the visitors to the compound. Health and safety is a very serious thing and should be treated as such. So what we did is to ensure that there isn't any item that significantly or even if not so significant affect the well-being of our teachers as tutor representing teachers, but of course we can't leave out the students. um, we we have not seen anything that would compromise the health and safety thus far. I think the contractors would have done well to section off the work so that it doesn't really affect our teachers, our students, and the visitors to the compound.
Right. Now, while they are rotating that 1 week on, 1 week off, and you mentioned that, well, not 1 week on, but 1 day on, 1 day off, and you would have mentioned that the week would cancel out or balance out each other, there is the learning loss that would have happened during the pandemic. Do you see this rotation of the days affecting how students will now be able to almost catch up to the work that has to be done?
To me, learning loss, the term learning loss creates a panic. Learning loss really supposed to show what happened in the pandemic. Students weren't able to learn as much, but students were learning. So the saying learning loss gives persons a sense that all hope is gone. Life is learning, life is education. And we need, once we collaborate with our parents, where they would have an understanding of the curriculum, we can all play a role in students getting to the level where they are to be at. Education is not an 8 to 3 in any particular school. Like as I said already, life is education. So there is always hope once you have life to catch up or to get to that place where you ought to be. But it can only take place with an understanding. So parents need to get the understanding. So I believe teachers, the division may need to have programs to help parents help their children. Teachers need to reach out to the parents and to help them to help the teachers themselves. So once we all work together, the students will catch up. I would not give up on hope, and also to say that because of the rotation, all is lost. I cannot say that at all. There's always opportunity for our students to learn, and once we work together, it will be done.
Right. And were there any other schools that did not open for that September 5th resumption of classes?
It would have been Speyside High School, but they would have since rectified those issues. They have the new wing that is still not functional to date, but they are doing works on that. And initially they had issues with the toilets, but my latest reports indicate that they would have since put doors on all the toilets, which would have been the issue why they had to delay their reopening.
Right. And going back to the issue of the relocation, because what you said earlier is that, I believe a spot in Bacolet was identified and, nothing ever happened. I mean, what is going to happen now? Is it that we're just waiting for the repairs to take place at Scarborough, and then when we come again next year, we're going to see more repairs need to be done? I mean, what's the update on that?
Well, the extent of the work done at the school shows that there isn't that promise that there's a new school next year, next 2 years, next year. I think we have all come to the understanding that even if the contract work starts within the year next year, it would take some time and to get everything in place. So the fact that they're doing all the work they're doing now, it shows that it will take some time. But what we need from our politicians, and not necessarily no politicians, is honesty. Once the public understands what we are working with, we can necessarily do the preparations mentally, physically, and so forth. But we are getting these submissions that each administration that comes in, they have the wherewithal for the new school, and it's going to happen in the very near future. We had a budget presentation, I think, by the last finance secretary in 2021, where there was a 200,000 allocation towards the new school. I don't know what that was to do. If we haven't reached any way in terms of the land and the drawings and all those, what that 200,000 was for them.
Okay. Wow. And Mr. Roberts, I know that one of your concerns has always been the lack of furniture in the schools across Tobago. Is that still an issue?
Well, but if you notice, I haven't really pung on that for some time. It is still an issue.
It still is.
Yeah, from the listening to the secretary, I believe that they have been making efforts to acquire furniture. I believe Scarborough Secondary School would have received some furniture recently, but there are schools, is an ongoing process. And actually visiting some of the schools, you would see where some students are sitting down with their desks. So they have their bag on their lap and that kind of a thing. But I would have to understand our teachers and our parents who are working with the current system that some things would take time. I would have hoped that greater effort would have gone into ensuring that schools started the term with all the furniture and so on resolved. But it's been worked on, and I'm seeing where it's been worked on, but not at the pace that we all desire.
Right. And finally, Mr. Roberts, anything you want to add before we close?
Right. So in terms of the ministry, there's some HR issues that plague in our teachers where Tobago still is required to send some of these documents to the ministry to have them approved. Now, I'm not certain what is the communication with the ministry and the division, but very little communication takes place. Teachers, for example, you get married and you want to change your name. That can be a process that takes you 4 to 5 years to have someone in ministry sign off on that to send it back to the division. A teacher who falls ill and needs extended leave, sometimes you are retiring before that leave is even classified. So we have a lot of administrative duties that is sent to Trinidad, to the ministry, and it's not getting the requisite attention. So our teachers in Tobago are suffering from that. Now we have been calling for Tobago to get this authority to do some of these classifications, these approvals in Tobago so that our teachers will not continue to suffer the lengthy wait periods. However, we need the secretary and the minister to come together on this. Right. The chief administrator and the permanent secretary, those are on equal level, to devise a way where we can either improve the communication, because there isn't a desk-to-desk communication where someone in Tobago HR dealing with, let's say, dealing with leave. Call a particular desk in Trinidad and there is that fluent communication, you know. We have documents being sent, no one receiving documents in Trinidad. There's a blame game, so it's Tobago at fault and Trinidad is at fault. This is one country. The kind of technology we have now, we are still suffering from these things. So something needs to come into play where we treat with our teachers in Tobago in a better way.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Roberts, and I hope that the relevant authorities do hear your cry and that you hear some sort of response to it soon. But it's always a pleasure to have you here on the Now Morning Show. Do have a great day in Trinidad, because you're back. You're here in Trinidad. So have a good one.
Yes. So thank you very much, and thanks for the opportunity to represent the members on your platform.
Of course. Well, that is how we wrap this first segment on the Now Morning Show. That was the TTUTA Tobago Officer, Mr. Braith Roberts, just sharing some concerns, of course, he has with the admin staff, and of course, how we can get our students to have a good building so that they can continue their learning. Here on the Now Morning Show, we're going to take a break and be right back. Stay with us.